Just quick introduction for who's speaking with us today. So I'm Mark Treschl. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Quantum Metric, where I was also an advisor for several years before joining the team. Before Quantum, I co-founded the first real-time voice-to-customer platform called Opinion Lab that helped hundreds of enterprises accelerate their digital presence over the past 20 years or so. We're also joined by Megan Hastings, who is a customer success business consultant here at Quantum Metric. Megan's experience also includes work as an analytics manager for HEB, informing curbside fulfillment strategies launching back in 2017. Prior to that, she was recognized by the auto care industry for extensive work in digital marketing and training. Summer Powell hails from North Carolina, where she works as a senior web analyst for Advanced Auto Parts. She prides herself in relentlessly finding data-driven answers for questions regarding online go-to-market strategies, and most importantly, sharing those insights with the entire organization. And then last year, we've got Tom Kraus, VP Digital of UNFI. Tom joined in December 2016 with over 27 years of retail merchandising experience. Currently leads them in e-commerce and digital teams and B2B and B2C e-commerce business. And he's been working in the space since about 2006. So obviously we reviewed the poll, and it sounds like a lot of you have just rolled this out recently. So I guess this would be highly relevant. We have several people here who've done this for many years. So I'm looking forward to them sharing with us today. And despite not being here together in person, I do think we need to celebrate that we're in the middle of one of the, if not the fastest digital consumer transformations in history. Our habits are highly social, as we heard from Aaron on the previous session, and our shopping behaviors are influenced by our environment. And it all has a high impact on the way that we interact with products and services. And so with this change, so is our shopping behavior. And the impact of our renewed sort of prioritization on safety and security has caused an unprecedented spike in digital interactions, while at the same time just crushing the brick and mortar. So let's go here. So I wanted to bring up a quick example of one of the leading Fortune 500 retailers. It's actual data, including the financial results. And if you look along the left, by all digital accounts, they just had their best quarter in history. So as we tend to hear quite a bit, every day is like Black Friday online these days. Traffic up 50%, online sales up over 80%, even conversion up 30%. But at the same time, with the physical location shutter, this particular brand incurred a revenue drop of nearly 45%, or almost $2 billion of revenue in one quarter. So all teams, including digital, are being asked to do more with less. So really, what are we looking at to reconcile this dichotomy? Curbside pickup is one strategy to bridge the gap between the online and offline. And according to recent polls, the majority of people say they'll continue to use it long after this pandemic is gone. And so how do we build a more complex product like curbside pickup into the customer journey, when by all accounts, customers are less engaged regardless of platform, less forgiving, and they exhibit higher friction in the digital channels? So today we're joined with a few people who've been involved in building out and optimizing curbside for many years. And we're going to kick it off with Megan, who's going to walk us through several examples and learnings on the digital side, and then wind in Tom and Summer as she goes. So Megan, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. All right. So this moment in time has really required companies to think creatively on how to allow customers safe and quick access to products. So many companies raced to implement a curbside pickup program, and many were faced with the challenge of getting customers to learn something new. So with this presentation, we're going to take a look through the customer lens to understand how we can go about easing the transition to training folks to use curbside with these top 4 curbside essentials. And our first takeaway or essential is that communication is key. So good communication is really always a necessity, but especially when you're trying to implement something new. So you don't want to add confusion for your customers. So let's start at the beginning of the process when a customer could even just be looking for something, a product or a service through a search engine. So Summer is going to tell us how Advanced Auto pivoted to meet customers before they even arrived at the site. Take it away, Summer.
So one quick adaptation we had to do once the pandemic was really in gear was realizing that, buyer behavior has changed, and realizing that buyer behavior has changed in all aspects of digital marketing. So with our SEO strategy, where we had people before that might have been searching for battery testing, now they're looking for contactless battery testing. So we may have had great rankings before in some of our key categories, but as these behaviors are shifting, you really have to be quick so that you can keep up with their changing needs. So having the COVID contactless different keywords incorporated into our SEO strategy has really helped us stay up to date with our industry.
Excellent. Alrighty, so we know that clear communication should continue throughout the shopping experience. So let's say a customer lands on your site and they're looking for more information on how to make a curbside order. So let's say they land on a learn more or an information page. So for curbside fulfillment, because they're trying to learn more about it. So we see that visitors who do this have a higher conversion rate. So that's telling us this type of customer is a motivated shopper. So we had one Fortune 50 company implement a curbside pickup page, learn more page, much like this one on the page, throughout their site, and had customers directed to it. So when visitors clicked on the banner and it took them to this page, the information on the landing page wasn't really clear, and there was no path forward for the customer to continue in their shopping experience. So in this case, we see in this interactions where people are clicking and tapping all over the page, this mobile web browser, that resulted in confusion, and then many of those customers ended up abandoning because there was no path forward. We see a good example of this though with Tom's company with UNFI or Supervalu, showing a clear call to action with that green checkbox. So he's going to speak a little bit later in the presentation, but that's a good example of a clear call to action that would take somebody forward in the process. And now on to a PDP example. So with this one, we saw customers were unsure of how to select curbside delivery within a PDP or a product description page. So with this one, they clicked on free pickup in store on that text. And so remember that this may be a user's first engagement with your site. They could have arrived from a campaign. So you need to make sure that pages like this clearly communicate to customers how to proceed forward in their journey. And with this next essential, that takes us to our next point, which is nailing down logistics. So once you've told your customers what curbside is, we need to make sure we solidify all logistics to ensure customer satisfaction. And for this piece, I'm going to hand the mic back over to the pioneers in our space that we have with us on the call, Summer and Tom, to talk about best practices. And so Summer is initially going to talk a little bit about product availability challenges, and then Tom is going to speak on how to continue that seamless experience at the physical location.
Thanks, Megan. So with the uptick in growth we've seen largely driven by curbside, we've definitely experienced some new pain points. So one of the new pain points we saw was a challenge in overcoming our spikes in out-of-stock messaging. We had more customers than ever before looking online first before going in store to buy, and logistics truly come into play. Although we have a check nearby stores option in our buy box, this does require an additional step by the user. We were able to see that over 22% of users who were getting this out-of-stock messaging were abandoning, and they weren't taking this next step to actually check availability at other stores. To overcome this pain point, we had a hypothesis that if a product is available at a store nearby and not at the user selected store, that if we automatically populated that in our buy box as another option, that we may see a conversion rate lift. So once we were able to test this buy box change by adding the additional location nearby that had the product in stock, we increased our conversion in our paid search channel by 1.5% overall. So we saw some really great results just by this one simple change in our buy box, by just helping our consumers understand that we do have products available nearby, and we want to make sure that they know that we want to get the parts to them. So yeah, sometimes it's not about like huge warehouse DC inventory logistical changes, but it can just be something really small you do on your PDP to help overcome certain obstacles.
Awesome. Well, let's kick it over to Tom to talk a little bit about the pickup experience at the physical location.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Summer. Let's go to, I think, the next slide.
My bad.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
At Cub Foods, which is one of our wholly owned retail grocery chains, we had a vision that we started working on actually several years ago to do pickup in the stores. And, we learned a lot through the experience. It took us quite a while. We rolled it out across a fleet of 80 stores. And, it took us about, a good 2 years to get that done. A lot of it had to do with just weather. You can't do a lot of the things in the northern climates in the wintertime. So we were limited to kind of the summer construction season. But this was a diagram of one of the concepts that we had floated. So we had a nice parking lot sign, and then we had painting in the parking lot. Let's go to the next slide. And then this is the actual construction. On the left there, you can see it's in process. I mean, we had to get the parking lot cut and have electrical put in to light the sign. So there was quite a bit of work that had to go into it. And then on the right, you can see the finished product. And then you can see there the inset of the smaller sign that we had in place. And we actually started with smaller signs and then, moved to the more robust concept based on all of our learnings. And so, I think the key thing with this is, particularly now with COVID, it's incredibly important to have this as a service. The consumer has, to some degree, come to expect it, and they also understand it today. And so you can use that to your advantage. When we started rolling this out, it was still pretty new to the consumer, and it wasn't quite as understood. So, as you're going to do this, it's really critical to not think of this as an e-commerce initiative only. I mean, this is really the blending of digital and physical retail. And, so that means it's going to take a team in order to make this happen. And, there's the obvious pieces of it. I mean, obviously, you're going to need your e-commerce team and your digital marketing team and, some of the folks from your regular marketing, and you're going to have to build some creative to figure out the concept. You're going to need your tech team, your store operations folks. Those are the obvious pieces. The less obvious pieces are the complexity that you start to get into with when you're talking about real estate and legal. And it's a complex project that's going to require some project management. If you're going to put signs in the parking lots of your stores, you're going to need landlord approvals. You're going to need city council approvals. So there's all of these pieces. And so, it's going to take a cross-functional team to make it happen. And you really need to then obviously get top management support to drive it, because you're going to have to tap people from several different departments. So that would be my first piece of advice is, to build a team, realize that, it's not an e-commerce only initiative, and you need to, bring your friends along for it. The great news is, today the customers know what to do. You can follow best practices, learn from your competition, learn from what the market leaders are doing. Guys like Walmart and Target, they've trained the industry on, and the consumer on how to do this. So if you follow their best practices and follow the lead of, most of your competitors out there, the customer or the consumer is going to know what to do when they get there. So, I would say it's definitely worth the effort. Particularly with COVID, it's going to be around for a while. So if you haven't started, it's not too late to start and go out and give it a shot.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. All right. So our third point is to simplify checkout. So we know in times of stress or anxiety that goal and purchase-oriented shopping increases. So we saw some of our customers successfully implement express checkout options to bypass the cart to accommodate for these types of shoppers. But on the other end of the spectrum, we also saw checkout experiences that weren't as ideal. So it's important when the customer has made it all the way through the journey to checkout to ensure that the final stage is as easy as possible. So we saw this example of a customer on the cart page, and it wasn't clear how to opt into the curbside pickup when selecting BOPIS. So this customer repeatedly clicked on the unclickable greenish teal text that says curbside pickup option available. And only half of those customers actually made their way to click on the details page. So for many of these customers, instructions weren't even available until order confirmation. And then just going back to the first point, it's hard to simplify checkout to your customers if you haven't clearly communicated the process to your customers. So communication really is key once again, and it's important to let your customers know all the information they need to transact. And then with this example, we saw a top retailer experiencing an error in checkout when their customers tried to mix curbside pickup with another delivery fulfillment option. So even though their FAQ said that multiple fulfillment types were allowed, their customers received this oops pop-up that prevented them from moving forward and resulted in a 29% drop in conversion. So Quantimetric was able to quickly identify and calculate that the drop was costing this client about $5K per day. So quantifying the impact, which takes us into our final point. So right now, businesses are changing so fast. There are so many opportunities for companies to consider creative and innovative approaches to the customer experience. But in order to be able to understand what's working or what's not, you have to quantify. And you have to quantify in terms of revenue and customer experience. So we know that it's possible to quantify through many tools, but businesses need instant visibility to be able to quantify in the moment, to be able to take action on what to focus their efforts on. And so in summary, regardless of if you're just beginning to think about curbside fulfillment for your company, or if you've already implemented it at your organization, these are some of the learnings from Advance, UNFI, and our clients that may be able to help you. So communication is key. You're training a customer to do something new, so you've got to help them throughout the process. Nail down the logistics so the customer experience continues at pickup. Make sure you have signage telling your customers where to go and what to do. 3, simplify checkout. So if your customers are in the home stretch to complete their transaction, make sure it's easy for them to transact. And finally, quantify the impact. In order to be able to understand what's working and what's not working, you have to quantify. Thanks.